not as a separate entity. This is that whole mistake that people make. This is not a noun that we're talking about here.
It's fascinating because it seems like any conversation like that where you are talking about the galaxy and you're talking about things that are even beyond what we've been able to get a true concept of yet, like it goes outside of what the traditional Bible teaches. And yet you're having these conversations inside of a Catholic organization. That's
Sure.
certainly fascinating.
Yeah.
The second thing, though, is that you're the general counsel at this point.
Yeah.
So your job is to represent the interests of something that you do believe in, right? Like you're a Jesuit, proud Catholic, the whole bit. So you're part of an organization that you respect and admire and believe in the idea. But you're being presented with something that's so complex and gets right to the meaning of life, like, UFOs or alien existence.
Yeah.
And yet you have to go into the room objectively as an attorney to your clients in this case and say, what do we think? And the reason I put it that way is because essentially you are going in there, I don't mean to call you a robot or something, but as a lawyer, again, objectively, you have to be able to say, okay, I'm going to go with what my guys want to do here. At the same time, though, you're still a human being and you're still now getting access to things that, or at the precipice of getting access to things that you haven't had access to before that are certainly enough to make you question some stuff. So did the human being side of you ever get in the way of just assuming you were going to do exactly take the stance that they wanted to take?
No. I told them from the very beginning that I wasn't going to do that. I told them that I wasn't there to represent the Catholic Church, and I wasn't there to do anything. What I was there to do is to advise them.
Wow.
That I was, I was trained independently. I had independent judgments about what it is that was necessary to be done. I would share that information with them. I would make proposals to them, and they would either accept them or modify them. And then we would go forward, and we would get some kind of a consensus among our board, who were the assistant provincials, the 10 assistant provincials in the United States for social ministry, and then we would advocate this. So I was always, that was one of the things that disturbed the people in the law firms where I was, is I was never obliged to just do whatever their clients wanted us to do.
Wow.
That wasn't the kind of lawyer I was. What I was doing is saying, this is what you should be doing. You shouldn't be racially discriminating against people, in your pricing of your stuff for the A&P Corporation,
Right.
for example. You shouldn't do that. You shouldn't be discriminating against people in the, Arkansas, Missouri power company, just to increase the rates for black people because you could do it. You shouldn't be doing that. No, they viewed that as kind of unorthodox. Basically, who did I think I was? Who I was is who you came to me to ask me to come to your law firm. That's who I was. I didn't come to you begging to come to work for you. You asked me to come there, and so it's always been that way. And so that when I was at the divinity school, it was the Jesuit order that came there to ask me if I would come and become their counsel, and so that's the role that I played. And so I was constantly, forming independent judgments about what I thought was necessary to do. I would explain to them why I thought this was the right thing to do. And in 99% of the cases, they hadn't thought about it enough. They didn't have anybody in that kind of a position to do that kind of thinking for them.
That's what you were there for.
And so that's what I was there for.
Yeah.
And so when I sat down with Father Davis, I started to explain to him. I said, look, that I've done enough of the studies at the Harvard Divinity School about comparative social ethics, et cetera, to know that the basic worldview that an individual person adheres to is predicated upon the answers that he or she provides, at least unconsciously, to four major pillar fundamental questions. One is the cosmological question as to how the universe came into being. The second one is the so-called teleological question, which is, how is our universe unfolding? Is it expanding and dissolving into nothingness, or is it going to oscillate back and forth in a state of mass and energy? What is the teleological end game for our physical universe? Thirdly, of the four pillar questions is the ontological question, is how does consciousness relate to the material realm? and what is the role of consciousness in kind of forwarding our own biological evolution? Is there any kind of role played in your intention and to evolve your consciousness? And then fourthly, the fundamental one is the epistemological question, and that is, what is it you look to? How is it you go about determining what truth is? Is it predicated on just the exercise of your five physical senses that you can then process through your intellect, or do we have other faculties? Do we have, for example, another faculty by means of which we can directly and potentially immediately, experientially discern the bonding phenomenon that bonds every single ultimately irreducible integer of matter in the universe together into one unified harmonic whole? And more importantly, do we have an additional faculty over and above that is able to access the infinite and eternal, the exterior to the sum total of mass and energy in our universe? Do we actually have access to the infinite and eternal field of consciousness, not as a separate entity? This is that whole mistake that people make. This is not a noun that we're talking about here. This is a field of infinite and eternal consciousness, and there's no noun to it. It's a verb. It's a non-transitive verb of being, and that's what people get confused about.
What do you mean by that? I'm still confused.
What I'm saying is that one of the major heresies of all religious understandings is to try to nounify what they call God. They've developed this word for it.
Yeah.
It's a noun, and they talk about it like it's a person that you're talking to, like a great white bearded guy sitting on a throne somewhere, right? That to nounify this is a heresy. That's why you're never allowed to pronounce the name, right? It's a heresy to announce the name.
To say God?
Yes, because then you've nounified it, and it's not a noun. That it's a phenomenon. It's a consciousness.
It's bigger than language.
That abides. That's right. That it's a misjudgment. A fundamental misjudgment, because you're basically off by one, in that if you don't understand that the field of consciousness is not a noun, but it's a non entity.
But for purposes of what people out there do use in common parlance, in this case, they do use the word God.
Sure,
you are saying that consciousness is effectively where God resides.
That's right. Well, that again, you're still nounifying. What it is your location of your consciousness at the nodal point at the core of your being, that you have an unconditioned experience of consciousness. And I say unconditioned by your place of birth, unconditioned by your nationality, unconditioned by your genetic makeup of the physical body that you're incarnated in, unconditioned by your astrological predilections, the tractor forces that you've been exposed to in gestating in your mother's womb, in the time and place of your gestation, those kind of tractor forces like that, for example, suck billions of tons of water off onto one side of the planet every single day. These kind of tractor forces that you're exposed to by the celestial bodies that generates the whole science of astrology, as to why it is that an excellent astrologer, they could sit down with you, and by knowing exactly where the time and place was of your gestation, actually,
right,
it could start telling you what your favorite color is, what your mate looks like, what your favorite political attitudes are. And you sit there and a grown person will cry right in front of them by going, wait a second, somebody's been talking to you. Some of my friends have set this up, I
feel like every chick I talk to these days is doing that.
Well, they'll see right through you on that. And so what I'm saying is that in the incarnated state that our consciousness is in, is that we reside in a vehicle that is conditioned, and therefore our direct experience of reality is conditioned by these predilections that we have in our body. And part of the science of theology is how to rise above that. how you fast, and therefore you're not consuming the foods that affect you. That you don't drink the alcohol, you don't do the drugs, you don't do that kind of stuff unless you're really having a good night on Saturday nights. But
I'll take you to Deer Maud later. We'll do it.
You try to refrain from that. And so once you start recognizing that there's this issue about consciousness, and that you can, in fact, direct your own consciousness and start elevating your consciousness into a higher and higher state, that you can then discern things a lot more objectively. Okay, and that from that point of perspective, you can make judgments that are less biased, that are less predisposed toward your ethnic background or something like that. And so that's your consciousness, that's your conscience, that's what's there. Okay, and so that there's a science to this whole thing. And when you're in they were quite, I guess, pleasantly surprised that I was aware of all of that when I came to be general counsel for them. And so I started addressing this when we were actually given the opportunity to prepare this 3-hour closed-door seminar for the top SETI scientists, on the theological implications of contact with an extraterrestrial life form. We began to have these discussions. So I laid all of this out to the Jesuit assistant provincials and explained what I thought was the important implication of this, because here we have we come from a star system that's 4.5 billion years old, a planet that's 3.5 or 3.7 billion years old, but the entire universe, the entire universe is 13.78 billion years old.
Right.
So we're looking at other galaxies and other star systems in our own galaxy, that could be 6, 7, 8 billion years older than ours. Yep. So you could have another incarnated species with incarnated consciousness that had another 8 billion years of teleological evolution. And if you assume that there's some kind of like as Teilhard de Chardin, for example, believes that, that there's an unfolding complexification of consciousness, is that we are teleologically evolving over time into a higher and higher state of consciousness. Okay, and we're becoming more and more sensitive. We're becoming much more concerned about life around us, about our environment, etc. And that this is a process that we've become separated. When we evolved the intellect, when we evolved from Australopithecus up to Homo erectus and all the way to Homo sapien and Homo sapiens sapien, that this whole process that we've been going through here has been increasing our ability to get an objective look at reality, and that we can then make conscious decisions how to coordinate our conduct in the physical reality where we are. Just more respectful of the environment, more respectful of other life forms, etc. Be less combative. So that these are things that we began talking about in deciding to how we were going to present this lecture to the top 50 scientists at SETI. So we addressed.
And this is in the 70s.
This was 1977, the spring of 1977.
Okay. Thank you for watching the video, guys. If you haven't already subscribed, please smash that subscribe button and check out this clip's full podcast episode by clicking here or in the description below.